They all came from the sky. They all brought knowledge, shaping humanity, and they all promised to return again. But why did all ancient gods come from the sky? Let's start with Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, who ruled from his throne high on Mount Olympus, a place the ancients described as above the clouds. From there, he wielded thunderbolts as weapons, striking down enemies with blinding flashes and deafening crashes. In the myths, he was a figure of awe and fear, descending from the sky to settle disputes or enforce his will. Lightning in the ancient Greek world was a sign that Zeus himself had acted. For people who lived in an age before science could explain storms, the sudden violence of thunder and lightning felt like a direct message from the divine. And those messages always came from above. Thousands of miles away in Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztec peoples told stories of another sky deity, Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs, Kukulkan to the Maya. His name means feathered serpent, a combination of bird and snake that symbolized both the heavens and the earth. Unlike Zeus, who hurled lightning, Quetzalcoatl was known as a bringer of wisdom, learning, and creation. Yet, his arrival was always from the skies. Legends say he descended to Earth, sometimes in human form, sometimes as a great shining serpent. He was also linked to the planet Venus, the brilliant morning star, which the ancients carefully tracked in the sky. Venus's movements often marked important seasonal and ceremonial dates, and Quetzalcoatl's association with it tied him directly to celestial cycles. In some versions of the myth, he departed toward the east, promising to return. In the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamian texts tell of the Anunnaki. Their name can be translated as those who came from heaven to earth. In the myths, they were powerful deities who played central roles in shaping humanity's fate. The stories describe them as descending from the sky to rule, to teach, or to pass judgment. They were connected to the stars and planets, often depicted in art with celestial symbols above their heads. The Anunnaki were said to dwell in the heavens, but could walk among mortals, blurring the line between the divine realm above and the human world below. While later interpretations have tried to explain these tales in different ways, in the original mythology, their defining trait was their origin in the skies. Far to the northeast, in the wide open steppes of Central Asia, the people worshipped Tengri, the eternal sky father. Tengri was not a god bound by human form, but was instead the embodiment of the endless blue sky itself. To the nomadic Turkic and Mongolic tribes, the heavens were a living presence watching over every step of their journey. Tengri was believed to grant power to rulers, determine victories in battle, and control the fate of entire nations. His home was the infinite vault of the sky, and his will was carried out through the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. In the Slavic and Balkan lands, on the other hand, thunder and lightning were the domains of Perun, the supreme god in the old Slavic pantheon. Perun was a warrior god, armed with a mighty axe or hammer, which he would hurl from the sky to strike down demons and evil forces. His home was believed to be in the highest branches of the cosmic tree, far above the mortal realm. Storms were his battles, and thunder was the sound of his weapon crashing through the clouds. In some regions, he was closely linked to the cycles of war and harvest, reminding people that the skies held power over both life and death. Among the southern Slavs, particularly in ancient Balkan traditions, a similar role was played by Zeus, sometimes considered a local variation of Zeus. Zeus was also a sky and thunder god, ruling over storms and wielding lightning as a weapon. His name and attributes suggest a shared origin with other Indo-European sky gods, pointing to an even older tradition that stretched across continents. People prayed to him for protection from storms and to ensure fertile lands, looking upward for his favor and fearing his wrath when the skies grew dark. In all these cultures, from Greece to Mesoamerica, the gods lived above, ruled from the skies, and descended when they wished to influence the human world. But isn't it strange that civilizations separated by thousands of miles, with no way to communicate with each other at the time, share almost identical stories? The answer to this question might lie in the modern interpretation of the Anunnaki by author Zecharia Sitchin. According to Sitchin, the Anunnaki weren't just mythical figures from Mesopotamian legends. They were real flesh and blood visitors from a distant planet called Nibiru. In his controversial theory, Nibiru has an elongated orbit that brings it close to Earth only once every 3,600 years. And when it did, these advanced beings descended from the sky in ships of fire and thunder. But why would they come here? Sitchin claimed they were after Earth's natural resources, especially gold, a metal they allegedly needed to repair their planet's atmosphere. To mine it, they required a labor force. At first, they tried using their own kind, but the work was exhausting and dangerous. So they came up with another plan: create workers by altering the species already living on Earth. And here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. According to this interpretation, the Anunnaki took early hominids and genetically modified them, blending their own DNA with that of primitive humans. The result was brand new species, us. This wasn't just creation in the divine sense, it was biological engineering on a scale we can barely imagine today. But this idea isn't limited to Mesopotamia. If we jump to the Hebrew Bible, we find an oddly similar story in the book of Genesis. It tells of the sons of God who came down to earth and took human women as wives, producing offspring known as the Nephilim. These were described as beings of great strength and knowledge, unlike ordinary humans. Could the Nephilim and the Anunnaki be two names for the same phenomenon? And if so, what about other cultures? In ancient Greece, there were tales of demigods, children born from unions between gods and mortals. In Mesoamerica, myths speak of great rulers and culture bringers who were said to be descendants of sky gods. Across Asia, legends tell of kings chosen or fathered by beings from the heavens. It's as if each civilization was remembering the same event, but telling it in their own language, with their own symbols. The gods of Olympus, the feathered serpent of the Maya, the lords of Sumer. Maybe they weren't separate pantheons at all, but regional memories of one group of advanced visitors. And if Sitchin was right, these visitors didn't just create us. They passed down knowledge of astronomy, agriculture, architecture, and governance. They became our first teachers, engineers, and rulers. Maybe that's why some ancient societies seem to leap forward overnight, building cities and monuments that still baffle engineers today. If this is true, it would explain why so many ancient cultures looked to the sky for their gods, why they shared strangely similar stories despite being separated by oceans and centuries. It would also mean that humanity's earliest chapters weren't written by us alone, but co-authored by beings from beyond our world. And today, we may still see the fingerprints they left behind, not just in myths and texts, but carved into the very stones of the earth in the form of colossal megalithic structures that should have been impossible for ancient hands to build. One of the most mysterious sites on the planet is Pumapunku in Bolivia. This site, part of the ancient city of Tiwanaku, contains stone blocks weighing over 100 tons. That's the equivalent of about 15 African elephants, each carved with such precision that the edges are as sharp as modern machine cuts. These stones fit together so perfectly that even today, a single sheet of paper can't slide between them. The cuts are so clean, Some researchers say they resemble work done by diamond-tipped saws or high-speed drills. But Pumapunku dates back over 1,500 years. And according to mainstream archaeology, the people of that time didn't have steel tools, let alone machinery capable of this kind of engineering. To make the story even stranger, Pumapunku is not the only site that gives modern scientists more questions than answers. At the site of Baalbek stands the Trilithon, 3 enormous stones forming part of the temple's foundation. Each one weighs around 800 tons. But the truly mind-bending part isn't just the weight. It's what lies in the nearby quarry. This block, called the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighs an estimated 1,000 tons. And in 2014, archaeologists found an even larger block in the same quarry, the Forgotten Stone, estimated at 1,650 tons. That's the largest known stone ever cut by human hands. Mainstream theories suggest the Romans built this site, but even they would have struggled to move these stones, especially without modern cranes. In fact, some of the largest blocks were never moved at all, possibly because they were just too big to transport. However, none of this is certain, and scientists can only speculate about who actually built it and for what purpose. We see a similar case in England, with the well-known Stonehenge. Everyone knows massive standing stones arranged in a perfect circle. But hidden among them is something particularly interesting: the altar stone. This massive block lies flat in the center of the monument, weighing about 6 tons. But it's not the weight that makes this massive stone unsettling, it's its origin. Geologists discovered it's made from a type of sandstone known as Old Red Sandstone, traced back to the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. This conclusion came from detailed mineral analysis, comparing microscopic structures in the stone to known quarries in Wales. Think about that. Thousands of years ago, without wheels or modern transport, people somehow hauled a 6-ton stone across rivers, hills, and valleys to place it precisely in the heart of the circle. Some theories suggest log rollers and sheer manpower. Others hint at waterways and rafts. Yet none fully explain the precision and effort involved, leaving us to wonder, was there an unknown technology or forgotten method that made the impossible possible? And speaking of the impossible, in southern Peru, we can see something unlike anything else: the Nazca lines. From ground level, these massive drawings don't make sense. They look like random lines etched into the desert. But from above, they form enormous shapes: animals, plants, and geometric patterns stretching for miles. Some lines run perfectly straight for several kilometers, as if drawn with the aid of surveying equipment. However, the only problem is that the Nazca people created these lines over 1,500 years ago, long before humans had any known means of flight. So why create something that can only be fully appreciated from the air? And not just the Nazca lines, but also other strange megaliths and monumental structures built around the world. Many researchers have speculated that these could have been ceremonial pathways, astronomical calendars, or even messages to the heavens. But there's another theory, one that ties directly into the idea of sky gods. Some believe these sites have served as landing markers and visual guides for crafts descending from above. It's an idea mainstream archaeology dismisses. But if that's the case, why do they still have no definitive explanation for their purpose? If the idea of extraterrestrials visiting Earth thousands of years ago still sounds unbelievable, maybe these ancient artworks will make you think twice. Across the globe, separated by oceans and centuries, civilizations created figures and carvings that look eerily similar to what we describe today as an astronaut. In the jungles of Guatemala, At the ancient Maya city of El Peru, Huaca, in 2022, archaeologists opened a royal tomb inside the main pyramid and found a set of ceramic figurines. But one of them was a warrior or elite figure wearing a fitted suit and a removable helmet. Could it be a memory of a figure who really wore protective equipment? Something akin to a modern spacesuit? Yes, the Maya were masters of symbolic art. But why make a helmet that can be taken off, unless they were trying to depict a real, functional object? From there, we move to Palenque, another Maya site in Mexico. Inside the Temple of the Inscriptions lies the famous sarcophagus lid of King Pakal. To mainstream archaeology, it's a symbolic scene of the king descending into the underworld. But look closely. Pakal appears to be in a reclining position, hands on controls, feet pressing against pedals, with flames or exhaust trailing behind him. To some researchers, it looks like the king is piloting a craft. The next clues can be found in Abydos, Egypt, where on the stone of the temple of Seti I are carvings that have sparked debate for decades. Among the usual hieroglyphs, there are shapes that look strikingly like a modern helicopter, airplane, and even a submarine. Some Egyptologists say this is just a palimpsest, old carvings overlapping with newer ones by accident. But did ancient artisans simply get lucky with these forms? Or were they recording something they'd actually seen? The resemblance is hard to ignore. Also, there are Japan's dog figurines, dating back over 2,000 years to the Jomon period. These small clay statues have large, goggle-like eyes, tight-fitting bodysuits, and strange protrusions that look like tubes or breathing apparatus. No one knows exactly what they were meant to represent. Mainstream theories say they could be fertility symbols or religious idols. But why the goggles? Why the body armor? If you saw this shape on a sci-fi movie poster today, you'd instantly think space traveler. We keep finding images and evidence like this all over the planet. And maybe these are indeed interpretations of beings and events people once witnessed. But if so, who or what were they? Honestly, we may never know for sure, and we can't claim with certainty. But many researchers believe that the figures we've just seen could be connected to beings who helped ancient peoples in ways we still struggle to explain. One of the strongest clues: the way some of the world's oldest and most mysterious sites are aligned with the stars. Alignment so precise it's hard to imagine they were done without advanced knowledge of astronomy. Let's start with Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. This site is over 11,000 years old, far older than Stonehenge or the pyramids. Massive stone circles, each with decorated pillars, were built long before the invention of writing or farming. Some researchers believe that parts of the site were positioned to track the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. Others think carvings on certain pillars record a comet impact that may have changed the climate. But there's a debate. Mainstream archaeologists point out that the stones have shifted, been reused or moved over thousands of years, making exact alignments hard to prove. Still, how did hunter-gatherers even begin to think in such precise celestial terms? Moving forward in time, we come to the Great Pyramids of Giza. These structures, built over 4,500 years ago, are precisely aligned with the cardinal directions, and their layout matches the 3 stars in Orion's belt. To align such huge monuments so perfectly would require advanced surveying tools, or perhaps guidance from someone who had the knowledge already. The ancient Egyptians linked Orion to Osiris, the god of rebirth, which adds another layer of mystery. Were they marking the heavens for spiritual reasons, or for something they expected to return from that direction? Another example is Abu Simbel. Built by Pharaoh Ramses II, this temple is famous for an incredible phenomenon. Twice a year, on February 22nd and October 22nd, Sunlight penetrates deep into the sanctuary to illuminate the statues of three gods, leaving only the statue of Ptah, the god of the underworld, in shadow. The precision required to achieve this is staggering, and it is not the end. Chichen Itza in Mexico is home to the Great Pyramid known as El Castillo. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun creates the illusion of a giant serpent slithering down the pyramid's staircase. And as we already mentioned, the Maya linked this to Kukulkan, the same deity known as Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs. When you put these examples together, you can clearly see a pattern starting to form. Across different times and continents, people built massive, perfectly aligned structures without the tools we consider necessary today. Were they simply masters of observation? Or were they following instructions from beings who had already mapped the sky? There's another theory about what ancient people might have seen in the skies, one that draws a direct line from ancient myths to modern UFO reports. If this is true, the fiery chariots, winged discs, and glowing skyboats of the past may not have been imagination or symbolism at all, but eyewitness accounts of the same kinds of craft people still claim to see today. Take the biblical prophet Ezekiel. In his vision, he describes a wheel within a wheel descending from the sky, shining like polished metal, with eyes all around its rim. He speaks of it lifting into the air and moving in any direction without turning. To a person in the 6th century BC, there were no words like aircraft or spaceship, so what else could he compare it to but a wheel? But read the description today, and it sounds strangely like a flying object with a rotating structure, lights, and an ability to hover and maneuver at will. Then there are Roman military records from around 100 BC. Soldiers reported seeing flaming shields racing across the sky, round, glowing shapes that moved silently overhead. At the time, they had no concept of UFOs, so they described what they knew, shields, but burning and flying. Fast forward almost 2,000 years, and 20th century pilots described eerily similar objects. During World War II, Allied airmen reported Foo Fighters, glowing spheres or discs that followed their planes. Many modern airline pilots and military personnel have given sworn testimony about luminous craft that can accelerate instantly and change direction in ways no human-made aircraft can. In recent decades, the reports haven't stopped. In fact, they've become even more intriguing. In 2004, US Navy pilots flying off the coast of California encountered what they called tic-tac UFOs, smooth, white, oval-shaped craft with no visible wings or engines. The pilots said these objects could drop from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second, then shoot away at impossible speeds. Official military videos of these encounters have since been declassified, showing the craft's movements that no known aircraft, civilian or military, can replicate. And in 2014 and 2015, Navy fighter pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt reported almost daily sightings of strange objects along the east coast of the United States. These UFOs could hover in strong winds, accelerate instantly, and even fly against the jet stream, all without any visible propulsion. Some pilots described them as spheres with cubes inside, an image that sounds like something from science fiction, yet it's part of the official record. Is any of this absolute proof? No. We can't say with certainty what these objects are. But isn't it strange that even in our modern, highly advanced age with satellites, radar, and powerful cameras, we still see things in the sky that we can't explain? Across the world, ancient traditions share a striking belief that one day the gods will return. From the Anunnaki in Mesopotamia to Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, from the sky deities of Asia to the prophesied second coming in Christianity, there is a recurring theme, the promise of a return from above. If that's true, then maybe today's wave of UFO sightings isn't new at all. Maybe it's the continuation of the same story humanity has been telling for thousands of years, the gods of the sky still visiting, still watching. Perhaps they never left. But why the sky? Why not the oceans, the forests, or the mountains? One explanation is simple. If advanced beings truly visited Earth, the skies would be their natural entry point. To ancient people, these visitors would appear godlike, descending from the clouds in blazing chariots or glowing discs. In an infinite universe, the odds that life exists only here are vanishingly small. Some worlds may host primitive life, but others could be home to civilizations far beyond our own, capable of genetic engineering, capable of shaping early humanity. So what do you think? Were the ancient gods just myths or real encounters our ancestors had with advanced beings? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more ancient mysteries. Keep your minds open, and until we meet again,